Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Again, has to be careful of the speed.
What a comeback season for Hal Sutton.
Come right back toward the hole. How about in? That's the second eagle he's made it for this week.
17 years later, Hal Sutton is the Players' Champion.
He's got it going right at the flagstick. It'll be up. It is.
Hey everybody, welcome to another Be the Right Club Today podcast. Hal, what's up?
Not much. We've got one of my old friends on here today that I spent a lot of time with on the tour, and he was the commissioner of the tour from 1994 to 2016, Mr. Tim Finchem. So we're going to ask him a few questions, maybe put him on the spot a couple of times, and
It felt kind of cool. He told us this was his first podcast he'd ever done. So
yeah,
we felt pretty special with that. That was fun.
yeah, got him out of the woodworks. You know, one of the things that he says in here is trying to figure out what he's supposed to be doing now. And I think everybody that's left the tours has tried to find their place after that.
Yep.
And
That's right.
he's not oblivious to that.
Well, you guys sit back, listen in, and enjoy Mr. Tim Finchem. And we are good.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome today to another Be the Right Club Today podcast. Can you believe I couldn't even say that correctly? But anyway, I'm going to welcome Tim Finchem, the commissioner of the PGA Tour from 1994 to 2016. I don't think he's ever done a podcast before. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you, Hal. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
Well, it's good to see you. So let's get started. Started in 1994. How long did you work for the tour before you became commissioner?
Well, including the time I did some work for him in Washington, and then I had a firm that did market research as we started to build tournament players clubs, including all of that, another 10 years.
Okay, great. So what was it like taking over for Dean Beeman in 1994?
Well, it was all of it's interesting, but it was great because Dean, I spent enough time with Dean where I learned a lot from him, particularly the early days of the PGA Tour, back when Bob Hope was still around and those guys. And Dean, when Dean became commissioner, the net worth of the PGA Tour was $150,000. And the tournaments owned the television rights, which made no sense. They had no leverage because all they had was one tournament a year to sell to ABC or CBS or something. And Dean changed all that. He got control of the ownership rights and that started the process of building to where we are today.
Tim, what was the most, when you took over for Dean, what was the most difficult part of being commissioner?
Well, first of all, Dean retired surprisingly young. He was 35 years old when he became commissioner. He was commissioner 20 years. He actually wanted to play golf some more. And he'd been tired of the office. And so it moved real fast when he made a decision. And I guess the most difficult thing was me coming to grips with the reality that I was going to do this, and I damn well better do it right. And So it was some pressure there from the start.
Thrown to the fire, thrown to the wolves a little bit before you were ready.
Yeah, kind of.
So how about the Players Championship and its impact on golf?
Well, Hal, you played in so many different tournaments around the country, around the world. I think the key is, are you making it better every year? And the players, Dean had the vision to see how the landscape at the Players could be put to use to really allow fans to see really well. He working with Pete Dye created a really challenging golf course so that a guy like Hal Sutton comes out and beats everybody in the field. It's a big deal, and so to see the work they'd done, the history. I always think about golf. There's so much history behind every little piece of golf that if you pay attention to it, it helps you as you look down the road and say, this is where we want to get to 5 years from now.
So a little bit of a response to your question there is, during my tenure out there, the Players Championship got better every year. And I know y'all worked really hard at that. One of the reasons why I think one day that it could become a fifth major is because there's so much history now at the venue of the stadium course that people can compare shots from year to year to year like they do at Augusta. Yeah. And, the other majors don't possess that. It's just TPC and Augusta that have that.
Well, I certainly wouldn't argue with your point there, because the way we look at it is there's the Players, and then the majors, and then everything else.
Well, that's the way I look at it too.
Yeah, that's right. But I'll say this: if you did that, if you went back and pulled out all of the most exciting, most impactful moments of the Players, Hal Sutton is right up there at the top with what you did and the way you did it that day. I mean, that just doesn't happen in golf. And the way you sort of conveyed the enthusiasm you had to impact anybody that was watching or on that property when you won that very special match you had going on there that day.
Well, I had maybe the world's greatest player on the hook there for a second. It's probably my only moment to ever get him on the hook. And I was really ready for that day to be over with. Trust me. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep him on the hook. So
no, it's but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just, you look at the spectrum about every little piece of what the tournament is about, whether it's the quality of the grass to the atmosphere where the fans can enjoy something to eat, or the nature of the players who are playing. But you look at every little piece and say, how can we get this better? How can we get that better? How can we get that better? And the people here who now do that work, with Jay Monahan leading them, it's really pretty special what they've managed to do.
So Tim, I played for a while, didn't quite make it to the PGA Tour, came pretty close, played the mini tours for 7 or 8 years. Let's talk a little bit about the developmental tours, kind of how they changed as you were commissioner, what that evolution looked like from, the Nike Tour to Web.com to Korn Ferry Tour now. And then kind of where do you think the future of the developmental tours are headed? Where are they going?
Well, there's two parts to that. One is developmental tours specifically, and then developmental tours on a global basis. And, we've gradually moved down the road of thinking about professional golf as a totally a global sport that has a lot of headlines and headpieces to it sprinkled around the planet, and so those tours become very important in terms of not just the individual player having an opportunity to compete, maybe win, start to move ahead, come up the list, but also beyond that, the extent to which players learn how they can contribute to what the sport is all about, not just the PGA Tour, but those other tours, international tours, and also get involved in the charitable aspects of the sport, which kind of sets us apart in many ways from other sports. When you think of the kind of charitable dollars that have been raised and donated. And I just, during my tenure, I saw a pretty good shift in the prioritization players had of wanting to be part of those other elements beyond playing the game, doing the best they can to win and move ahead, but all those other elements that in terms of how you handle the media, how you get involved in charitable activity and the rest, and the extent to which players take advantage of that part of it, it generates significant benefit to the sport, and also a great atmosphere and a feel for the sport. And I think that was one of the major things. You know, when the Hogan Tour started, it was then called the Nike Tour after that. But Ben Hogan, we made the deal with Ben Hogan, Dean and I, to put that tour together. And it immediately had an impact on generating more players getting to a point where they could win. And so it did create more competition for the then top players. And that direction is continued on till today.
So kind of a quick little follow-up to that. You know, and where I stand, it's always easy for, you know, the PGA Tour players or you know, obviously you being a former PGA Tour commissioner to always say, you know, hey, play better. One of the things that we saw when I was playing, when we first came out to the, you know, tried to qualify for web.com stuff, there were 14 qualifying spots. You know, now we've kind of whittled that down to 8. What's in your opinion, like, what's the reasoning? Why not go back, like take the web.com, for instance, or the Korn Ferry Tour now? Why not go back to, you know, not having an all exempt tour and allowing, you know, more people to qualify? What's kind of the reasoning for that?
Well, nowadays, when we have so many different tours, it's hard to point at one particular aspect and say, you know, this ought to be bigger, this ought to be less. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the logistics of putting on as many tournaments as we do, which is quite a few. But you know, where that goes going forward is a question you need to ask Jay Monahan when you do a podcast with him, and not me.
Love it.
Moving on here a little bit, one of the things that I was able to pay attention to when I served on the board of the tour was the relationship that the PGA Tour, the USGA, and the R&A had. I was a little bit of an outsider on that, but I know we had one. How did that change through the years under your tenure, Tim?
Well, I don't think it changed. In some ways, I don't think it changed dramatically, at least in terms of if you look at the structure of the USGA and what they do, structure of the PGA and what they do, et cetera. I do think the quality of the people in those organizations, just like our organization, improved in those years and moved in the right direction. And I think slowly but surely, there's been more interface between those organizations and more dialogue and more figuring it out, as opposed to saying, you know, we're X and we're going to go do A, B, C, D, and E. A lot of those organizations, including ours, we get picked on, and there's always some criticism. First time I met your friend Jackie Burke at a dinner down there in Texas for a tournament, he was seated next to me. I'd never met him. He said, Tim, you're a new commissioner down there. You know these guys at the USGA. I said, yeah, I know them somewhat. He said, well, can you give him a message for me? I said, what's that, Jackie? He said, you need to tell him for USGA does not stand. The United States, the USGA stands for the United States Golf Association. It does not stand for New York Golf Association. Does not stand for. He said, those people at the USGA, they don't know we play golf in Texas. so you always have that kind of stuff coming at you, but you just got to be ready to deal with it.
Well, I know there was some difficulties when the tour tried to persuade, if you will, either some rule changes or lighten up on the rules when the square grooves issue came up. I don't think they really wanted to pay a lot of attention to the tour, did they?
No, I think that's generally right. I think they didn't wake up in the morning, calling us first thing and saying, what should we do now? I mean, we didn't have that.
No.
I think they, but I do think that overall, as time went on, I think they listened to us. There were some things in there that I won't get into now, but it's probably, as I look back on it, I might have been in my position a little bit more aggressive because I didn't agree with some of the decisions that were made. But, in the scheme of things, I don't think it's worth worrying about too much now.
Tim, talk a little bit about Tiger's impact on not only golf, but your role as a commissioner. How did your job change when Tiger came on the scene?
Well, I don't think my job changed much. Tiger's playing golf and he's winning tournaments, and so I mean, it certainly didn't. I'd like to say it didn't affect. I mean, we didn't sit back on our heels saying, this kid is so great. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to work hard anymore. We were still focused and always have been on making it better and better and better for all constituencies. I do think that Tiger, to be candid, I do believe that Tiger's, when he came on the scene, did have a significant impact on the sport. Now, when he starts winning as many tournaments as he won, doing it in the fashion that he did it, that generates a lot of enthusiasm and interest, no question about it. But there's this other side of it that I see, which is that he stimulated the interest in young people to the sport. Looking back on it, I feel like in a very big way. And when he was, I think it was right after he won at Augusta, when Phil Knight at Nike signed, probably the biggest purse commitment to somebody to represent their brand as anybody in the history of golf. And I think as I look back on it, 95, 96, 97, I think parents started waking up to the fact that, they've got a 12-year-old, 14-year-old kid who's showing a lot of interest in playing golf. And all of a sudden, it looks like there's an awful lot of money coming into the sport, driven to some extent, or at least a piece of it, driven by Tiger. And that I think it really started to, if you go back to 1996 and you see what Tiger was doing, and then you look and you see the number of young people that started to really pay attention to the sport that led to First Tee and similar type programs around the country. It was to me, it's been a major factor in moving not just interest level, but by commitment of parents to invest in their kids. Now they start investing in their kids at 12, 13, 14. And at the same time, they developed an access to through the Golf Channel to watch it 24/7 and follow the best players and learn about the equipment and all those things. And I think ever since then, it really did change so that you have so much talent today. I mean, I don't know how to say this, but it's just an awful lot of talent. There's a lot of movement as we see every week in that particular week or in the overall money list or the FedEx Cup list. A lot of movement and a lot of youth coming up. And that's got to be healthy for us in the long term.
Has to be healthy. So you work with all the great players, you know, from Palmer to Nicholas to Norman to Tiger. You know, I don't even know how to ask this question. Some were easier than others, I'm sure. Some showed humility while others flexed their muscles. You know, our latest thing has been, you know, the new pool of money that they've come out with where they're trying to, you know, there's 10 players that are going to be involved in the $40 million. Mm-hmm. And I was on the board. I remember when Norman came out and wanted to start another tour. And, you know, he was pretty difficult about that. You know, there's always people looking to make more money, you know, and I loved the PGA Tour. I would have never bitten the hand off that had fed me. It was all about, in my mind, the PGA Tour was about charity and competition. And charity was always the winner every week. Charity won. And, you know, there was going to be an incredible competition between the players. And, you know, of all those people, who was your favorite to work with?
Arnold Palmer, probably, but just because he was so fun. But most of the ones you named, I enjoyed working with all of them. I even enjoyed working with the ones that could be a problem. I mean, you know,
really interesting.
Well, it's you know, it's kind of like you know, it's kind of a challenge. You know, you got a player who's not that they violate any rules, very little of that ever, but we have some, as you know, once in a while. But just to your point, guys who have an attitude about something, they're going in some direction, and it's in my job is kind of a challenge. Let's see if we can turn him around a little bit and look at it this way or that way. And I enjoyed that part about it. I enjoyed talking to people, and but yeah, it was a diverse group going back a good ways. I was blessed by coming along at a time where I got to know Sam Snead and that group, and then everybody since, pretty much. And I will say that the game from a professional standpoint has become a little bit more, and because it has to be because of the quality of the competition, but really focused on winning. Whereas the older guys I met early on were into it, but they were there to have some fun too. I mean, they were relaxed and funny, and actually, I think the pendulum's swinging back a little bit because the young guys today on the tour are kind of in some ways more like that. The ones coming up now, they like telling stories. They like telling jokes. They like getting the goat of another guy, and it's fun to watch.
Tim, Hal's talked about being on the board and spending some time on the board. How was Hal on the board? Do you have any run-ins with Hal on there?
Never had any problems with Hal. Hal always said, "What should I do next?"
I don't know if that's quite right or not.
Hal was great on the board. He was. Thing about Hal is he doesn't mess around with a lot of extra language. He gets right to the core of it, and when you're on a board, that's really helpful. Just let's get to it. And he's not one for sitting around. Good question, though.
Tim, talk a little bit about Bryson's impact and this distance impact on the tour. What's your take on all of it?
You know, I don't know how to characterize that because a lot of what Bryson does is just so different in the way most players approach the game. I think the on the one hand, you could say, well, it's a little bit out there. On the other hand, the way I look at it is it's a big plus for golf just because it is so different. It's different enough where people really pay attention to it. And that's what you want fans to do, pay attention. And I think Bryson has a positive impact in that regard. Now, how he fares over the next 10 years competitively and what he looks like for his career down the road, who knows? But right now, it's pretty exciting stuff. And he's winning some tournaments. And here again, I mean, just go back a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the quality, there's just so much capability among these players that pick one. I mean, they're all so good and they handle themselves so well. And Bryson is like that, I think.
I think he's been a good thing because he's offered up a fresh approach or a different approach than any of us really took. And he's opened up the eyes. You know, one of the things that he's ignored what the world has said. Yeah. That's hard to do when you play the PGA Tour. Ignore what people you respect think. Mm-hmm. And I think Bryson's done a really good job of living in his own world, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Tim and Hal both, Tim, you talked about Tiger and his influence on the young players playing and bringing more kids to the game. What are you guys' thoughts on why the fields are deeper now than they were 25, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Is it, mainly from the Tiger effect? Were there any other factors on why any given player can win on any given week now?
Hal, you want to go first?
Take off. I'm going to play off of what you say.
Well, like we were talking about a little while ago, I just think a player coming out is a better player on average than 10, 15, 20 years ago. I just think they have a better, stronger group of things around them to continue to make them better and better and better. And they learned a lot more, and they see it, and they've got the same level of total focus that you have to get to there. And there's just more of them coming all the time. Just more of them coming. On the one, I used to be concerned that there was so much talent coming up so fast that the fans couldn't get used to, couldn't figure out who's who because there's so many guys coming in and knocking guys out. But I don't see that anymore. I think the fan base we have is really more focused on watching great golf, period. And now they've always got great golf on the PGA Tour, and it continues to get better.
My first year on the tour in 1982, we still had the top 60 money winners. So my second year on the tour was the first year that we had the all exempt 125 top players. If you took the 125th player in 1982 and you took the 125th player in 2020, The 125th player now is so much better than the 125th player in that year.
Yeah.
It's not even funny. The best players were really good at that time, but so the players as a whole have gotten better. Junior golf has gotten better. College golf has gotten better. Amateur golf has gotten better. And by the time you get to your point, by the time these kids get to the PGA Tour, they're ready to win.
Yeah.
When I got there, I didn't know if I could win against the best players in the world. Yeah. These kids come out there today, say, if I get in position, I'm going to hit the accelerator because I'm ready to win.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think actually it's interesting. I think it's across all sports because my wife, Holly, grew up in gymnastics, and we went to see the women's gymnastics in Atlanta in '96. And then 20 years later, we went, and when we were down in Brazil, and we went. It's day and night. The strength, the speed, the agility of those players, those athletes, and it's true in pretty much all the sports. They're bigger, stronger, faster. People say, well, let's bring the line back in basketball a little bit, keep them from making all these threes. You can put that line anywhere you want. They're going to make threes. And I think that's just the way it goes. You learn things and you take advantage of learning the thing and you put it to use, and all of a sudden, you do enough of that, you're going to be a better player. But boy, you're right, Hal. These youngsters come up and they're ready to win. They're not coming to mess around.
Well, here's a good question for you. I think the tour's done a fantastic job in so many ways, and so many things is to your credit. You, Dean, did a great job before you came along, but then you just kept propelling it higher and higher and higher. And, I think if there was an area that the tour could be better at, it would be to prepare players for what's in front of them. I wasn't nearly as prepared as I could have been. And I don't know how you do that because you don't know where everybody's going to end up, because there's a different set of rules for how well you play, basically. But here's the next thing I'm certain they could do a better job: life after the tour. Boy, you talk about feeling lost after you spent your life playing on the PGA Tour, traveling the globe, and you just don't know what to do with yourself after you quit doing something like that. So what has Tim Finchem been doing after globetrotting around the world?
Well, Well, I agree with everything you just said, because it's just like if you're managing a company or running the PGA Tour. I mean, when you step aside, you at least for me, I just felt like it was the right time. But what I didn't realize was that it's such a massive change of because you've been doing this for years and years and years, and all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore. And it's a struggle. And I think, but what's helped me is that well, first of all, the team here has gotten better and better and better. And Jay Mon is doing just, I can't tell you, I can't put in words how good a job he's doing. But the other thing is that I spent a lot of time on First Tee program. And that really does help the transition, because I can sink my teeth into that as much as I've got time to do, and that kind of balances it out. But I always tell folks that somebody who quits, stops playing or retires, that you ought to take a year and just do something else and think about what you want to do before you jump into something and get frustrated by it. Just take some time and ask yourself, what can I do? What should I do? How could I help people, or whatever it is? And go about it that way. But But Hal, for example, you articulated well. I mean, how it can be, but you've stayed engaged. Your people look up to you, particularly down in your part of that world, and it's because of just the way you think about things. I mean, you've always been like that.
Well, I appreciate that. Giving back. You mentioned Jackie Burke earlier. He's always told me that, from the time I ever met him, he said, there's one thing you need to always remember, that no matter what level you play golf on, when you walk into the locker room, nobody's name on any of those lockers is bigger than the game of golf. That's pretty important right there. If we all put the game first, then the game of golf wins. And, I don't mean to regress here for a minute, but let's go back to when I was Ryder Cup captain in 2004, and I put Tiger and Phil together. At that time, Nicklaus and Palmer and Watson had played together 13 times, and they were 12-1. And I can tell you that none of those guys at that time were best friends. They were competitors. It's hard to be best friends with your competitor. And you know that. You watched it through the years. But had Phil and Tiger played well together, who would have won? Golf would have won.
Yeah.
And, I myself, unfortunately, tried to put golf first all the time. And, maybe that was the wrong thing to do. I'll go to my deathbed saying that I'd do it again. And because I thought golf could win. They paid them $10 million to do it later on. I just was ahead of my time.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good one.
I didn't get a commission on that either, by the way. They used my idea. What do you think about that, Tim?
When you said Jackie Burke and talking about the Ryder Cup, reminds me when we were there and PGA brought out these chefs from New York. Jackie said, "Well, when are we gonna practice for this tournament this week? We're in here. We got these chefs here. We got all this food, and the next day we're out there for the opening ceremony, and Jackie." And then they do the ceremony, and then they come out and they turn your chairs around so you can watch a concert. And Jackie says, "Oh, now we're going to listen to a concert. When are we going to get on some green grass so these guys have a chance to win this week?" And of course, and then you lost, but it was those Ryder Cups and President Cups. It's interesting to watch. It's a little bit of a different dynamic in those things with guys, and they don't always get along real good. No.
There's always stuff that people are behind the scenes see a little bit more than the people that are just there to spectate.
Yeah.
Tim, I got a quick question for you. What's one or two things you did as commissioner that you're most proud of?
Well, probably just the basic developing, always accelerating the quality and the capabilities of the people that you rely on to do the job at the highest level. I mean, sounds a little corny, but I mean, if you have good leadership and you're recruiting the right people, then you can go places. And we've had, and I think, but there are a couple other things. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that we worked with the players as closely as we did. We prioritized players' understanding from the business side and what we needed to do to take the business side forward so we could continue to generate financial support for players. And I think we got, during my tenure, I was really pleased with I've always felt strongly that if you can, if you can organize the sport like soccer, so it's a global sport, and under that lid there's different elements, like we do tours and different tours around the globe, and so you gradually get to a point where the brand is global, 100% global. And then you're able to take advantage of the marketplace in a way that feeds back to the charitable piece that Hal was referencing earlier, and gives you the opportunity to continue to grow that. Now, if you go around the country and you look at whether it's Los Angeles or Jacksonville or Houston, look at the numbers for charity that have always gone up and up and up and up. And that's great for charity, but it gets the attention of the marketplace. These guys are committed to the idea of giving money back. I don't want to say anything bad about the team sports, but we generate real cash flow into communities that need it. I really believe the players and people that work at the tour, and even the television people, they respect that, and they see what can happen if you work it hard.
Well, certainly the first tee's got to fit into one of those things that you're super proud of.
Well, first tee is just such an amazing thing. I mean, to see, and I know how you focused on young people for a long time, but to have the opportunity to give these kids the option to learn about golf, and then to watch. When I was growing up, my dad was in the United States Marine Corps for 30 years, and I'd follow him around a golf course. And sometimes that was how I got to know the play. And I didn't have a teacher or anything, but the extent to which kids can go to these chapters around the country and learn about the sport, and then it carries with them that enthusiasm for the sport. Now, one of two things are going to happen. They may end up playing the sport in 10 or 15 years. You don't know for sure, because it's challenging, as we all know. It's not a cheap sport. But they may, regardless of whether I'll bet you 99% of a kid that goes through the first tee is going to watch golf on television for the next 25 years. And a lot of them will play. And if they get access, they will play. But it's 20 years old, but I mean, it's just got a lot of upside going forward. We got a long way to go to maximize that.
Well, it's been, you certainly, it was one of the things that was popular with you, and you really did everything you could to grow that. And I know that everybody out there where every first tee is at appreciates all your efforts on that.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. I appreciate it very much.
Well, we appreciate this being your first podcast. I hope it wasn't too difficult. We didn't ask you too many questions that put you on the spot.
I'll tell Holly I dodged him. Said Hal was after me, but I dodged him.
No. We were.
No.
I knew you could bridge to another subject if you needed to. Anyway, Tim, thanks for being on the podcast today, and hope to see you soon.
Nice job. It was great fun for me. I really did enjoy it.
Well, that was fun. What'd you think?
It was fun, and Tim wasn't quite, he he knew how to bridge to a different subject if he didn't like what we asked him.
We definitely weren't trying to back him in the corner, but he didn't go anywhere with any of those questions where he was going to get in trouble.
Yeah, I was hoping that he would maybe give us a little bit more that we could play off of, but he really didn't do that.
Right.
He's very diplomatic in the way he does things. Maybe that's why he was commissioner and I wasn't, because I was a lot more straightforward with my thoughts.
In your mind, how do you think, the question I asked that he kind of turned around a little bit was how his role changed with Tiger? Obviously he's still the commissioner, he still had the same duties, but in your opinion, how did things change for him when Tiger came on the scene?
Well, I think it got harder and easier in many different ways. I think it got more involved when Tiger came along because everybody wanted a piece of this. Michael Jordan was the most decorated athlete in the world, and he was retiring from basketball. He recognized that here comes Tiger Woods, and he might be the most decorated athlete of all at that point. Possibly could dominate the sport, which he did end up dominating the sport. And that brought TV into the game in a bigger way. That brought money into the game. That brought more people into the game. And he alludes to that in many ways, how he brought kids into the game, how parents got involved because he signed the largest contract at the time Nike had ever signed. And parents all of a sudden said, hey, look, there's a lot of money in golf.
That's right.
And, it's made a difference as far as what we're doing, Parents are bringing their kids in, wanting to help them get better.
And Tiger was a little early on the scene for this, but then you start seeing the CTE stuff with football, and you start to see these brain injuries, and it's like, hey, wait a minute. Also, too, to the easiest point of all, Tiger made golf a little cooler than it was before with the kids. And so it's like, man, these athletes are starting to play golf. The Dustin Johnsons of the world that can dunk a basketball are starting to play golf.
Well, you just said the perfect word. All of a sudden, people viewed golfers as athletes instead of they weren't viewed as athletes before.
Right.
And, one of the points, it's almost offensive to me. I played every sport whenever I was growing up, and I wasn't overweight at the time, and I was told not to work out. I'm curious what I would have looked like had I worked out like these kids are working out today. But we were told it was detrimental to our golf game.
Yeah, we just didn't know. Yeah.
A whole different approach now.
What do you think of the first tee stuff?
I love it. First tee's been a significant advancement as far as helping everybody get into the game more.
Access,
and I think Tim was a big part of that.
Yep. Talk a little bit about you've mentioned the board and some of the meetings and some of the stuff when you were on the board. Did you guys ever specifically talk about Tiger coming on the scene or like what? Certain things. Did you? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot too much. I'm more so asking, like, when you were on the board, did you guys talk about specific players that much, or was it more general, basic concept type stuff?
It was general, basic concepts, but you can't help but talk about somebody like Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
He forced us to pay attention. During that time. He hit it so much further than everybody else did. And he came out, and all of a sudden the golf courses seemed to get longer and the greens got harder. Well, who did that favor?
Sure.
It favored Tiger. That certainly didn't favor Hal Sutton.
Right.
And, there was plenty of talk about that sort of thing, and, at the board level, this is Tim probably wouldn't appreciate me talking about this, but we never knew whether that was right or wrong. We just were playing, and we knew that was happening.
Yeah.
We don't know if that was a decision that was made from somewhere.
Yeah.
I one time I had a conversation with Tim, and I said, "Look, you don't realize how good Tiger is. You don't have to give him an advantage. He would prefer to show you I need no advantage to show you how great I am."
Yeah. Well, and you've said it a few times, and I think it's a great line. Like, the lead actor needs a great supporting actor, and Tiger needed. Not that he needed the competition, but man, when if Phil was on top of his game versus Tiger in 2000, it would have made Tiger look even greater because he's not winning by 10 or 15 because these guys are playing right up there with him.
Right. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I had the luxury, pleasure, good fortune, whatever you want to call it, to play with Jack Nicklaus at the tail end of his career, but still when he was playing great. I I was paired with him the first 2 rounds at Marion in 1980 when he was defending U.S. Open champion, and he led at Marion after the first 2 days, and I was playing with him as U.S. Amateur champion. I subsequently played with Jack several times the first couple of years of my life, tour life, and he finished second to me at Riviera, so he was still playing good. And then I later on down the line got to play with Tiger when he first came out there. Jack was as good as I've ever seen at realizing his strengths and realizing his weaknesses. He managed his game, something we talk about a lot and we'll talk about more, is golf management. No one managed their game better than Jack Nicklaus. He knew what his strengths were and what his weaknesses were. He played into his strengths and away from his weaknesses and waited on others to make mistakes. He did not force the point. That's the way everybody should play golf right there. I just described the mindset that if all of you could take that on, you'd become a much better player regardless of what your swing is like. Tiger played a different way. Tiger knew those things. He knew his strengths. Everything was a strength, basically. And he never feared the next shot because he knew he had it. Now, no one that I've ever seen played the game that way. That's why Tiger has done what he's done for the last 20-something years. No matter where he hit it, he knew he had the shot. Boy, would that make me make different decisions.
What a freeing way to play golf.
I mean, that's why he's won 85 times or whatever he's won. That's why his percentage of high finishes, he never feared the next shot.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd love to have a couple of weeks where I could play golf like
We don't
that.
need many weeks at the prize money they're playing at.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you've got some talent, and obviously, if you don't fear the next shot, you got a lot of talent.
Yeah, right. Man, that's good stuff. What a way to end this one. Again, thanks for joining in, guys. Check us out, Hal Sutton Golf, Chase Cooper Golf, HalSuttonGolf.com. Let us know if there's any topics, any specific guests you want on. We've got some exciting guests coming up. We're gonna have a lot of fun with this.
See you next week.
Be the right club today. Yes!